If you've been thinking about leaving the US, but you keep telling yourself it sounds too complicated, or I don't know which visa to get, or I don't even know where to start, then this video is for you. In fact, if I were leaving the US for the first time, there are 4 countries that I would consider living in, specifically in 2026. And these are places where you can book a flight, land, and start a completely new life within 48 hours. And then also start the process of getting longer term residency without having to deal with constant visa headaches. And I know this because I've already dealt with visa headaches in other countries, and I've decided to get longer term residency in one of these countries, including a cedula and a bank account. And now I'm even considering getting a 3rd residency in one of these countries that I'll go into as well. So in this video, I'm gonna show you the 4 countries that I would consider living in, specifically in South America and the Latin world, why they made my list, and what makes each one unique to give you the best chance at building a better life abroad. By the way, if you're new here, I'm Alex. I left the US in 2022, built a better life in South America through earning online income. Now I help other men do the same. So if you're interested in living abroad, earning remote income, or having more freedom, consider subscribing. Let's get into the video. Let's dive right in. So before I get into the countries, here are 4 pieces of criteria that I would personally look for if I were to move out of the US within 48 hours. Number 1 is visa-free stay. So I want to be able to show up to a place visa-free for an extended period of time. Luckily, since we're talking South America and the Latin world, most places you can live there for at least 3, more likely 6 months out of the year, which to me is plenty of runway to decide whether I actually like living somewhere before making a much bigger commitment, such as getting residencies or passports. And number 2 is a simple path to residency. Not only a simple, I want like a straightforward, I want an affordable path to residency as well, because visas can always change. Even something like a pensioner's visa or a digital nomad visa, these things can change. They're not necessarily permanent. Just with some currency fluctuations, now you're struggling to meet the requirements, the bare minimum requirements that you can extend for another 1, 2, 3 years, whatever it may be. Versus residency gives me more stability. So whether it's temporary residency, which is going to lead to permanent, or whether it's straight to permanent residency, which can lead to a passport, these are things that I look for now. And I want a place that I can legally call home for as long as I want without constantly worrying about visa changes. Number 3 is a strong quality of life and also safety. Now, quality of life means different things to different people, right? For me, it includes having good weather, having a reasonable to low cost of living, being in a country, and even more specifically a city that feels very safe and walkable, where I have a bunch of coffee shops, restaurants, bars, friends, like-minded people, activities, things like that I can participate in, and being able to navigate the city or the country without needing a car as well. You know, being a short walk from everything and having very affordable Uber ride is the kind of lifestyle that I personally look for. And then the 4th one is proximity to the United States, right? As an American, I still have ties to the United States. I still visit family and friends. I'm actually here in Boston at the moment visiting. So I still want to be able to visit my family and friends back home. Some of you might have businesses or clients in the US. Me personally, I'm in remote sales. So a lot of the clients or offers that I work with, well, pretty much they're all in the US. So I want to be within the same time zone. And I'm also not ready to completely cut ties with America. And to be honest, I'm not sure if I ever will want to cut ties with America. You know, the US, even outside of family and friends and connections back home, it's still a great place to not only make money from, but also, you know, for certain purchases such as electronics and having Amazon orders. A lot of the clothes that I buy, a lot of the electronics that I own, I buy in the United States. Also, of course, banking. You know, many people want to be part of our banking system. But I think most important is because of the people that I still care about back home, which is why I've been visiting every year, which makes proximity another important factor for me. So with these 4 basic criteria out of the way, let's get into the countries. So number 1 is Paraguay. Now, this shouldn't come as a major surprise. You know, I talk a lot about Paraguay on this channel. Paraguay is still my number 1 choice. It's still what I consider my base right now in 2026. It's a country that I lived in for nearly 2 years in total out of the 4.5 years that I spent in South America and the Latin world. And as a US passport holder, you get up to 6 months visa-free, which is one of the longest stays that you'll find anywhere. And it's still a great value country where your dollar still goes far. I mean, a lot of people are talking more about Paraguay. It is getting a little more popular now, but I still find the cost of living and purchasing power to be stronger than most other countries you'll find in South America and the Latin world. It's also one of the safest countries that I've lived in throughout South America. Now, to be specific, I've lived in Asunción, Paraguay, which is the capital, the capital city. That's where I've spent my time. But if you go outside of Asuncion, like to the countryside, most people that live outside the city will even say it's even safer there. Another thing I really like is the community that you get in Asuncion, Paraguay. You meet a lot of like-minded people. It's a younger city. So if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, you'll meet many like-minded people. If you're still building, if you're in sales, if you're doing some type of remote business, remote work, you'll meet more like-minded people in Asuncion versus many other cities you'll find. And it's not just Americans, but you meet many Europeans, many Canadians, many Australians, people from all over the world. And Paraguay is the first country where I decided to call a base and get residency. That entire process of getting residency here cost me a little less than $2,000. This was last year in 2025. I think that's going to keep increasing, and it's going to get a little more difficult with the amount of people that are coming to Paraguay. But for less than $2,000, guys, to have that entire process done, you can't really beat it anywhere else. There is another country I'll mention later in this video, but that is very reasonable and it wasn't much of a hassle either. Okay, I received my residency card in about 1 month from arriving in Paraguay. And just 2 weeks later, I had my cedula. And then once I had my cedula, I opened a bank account. And if you're curious about this entire process, specifically in Paraguay, I did a video on that titled How I Got Residency in One Trip. I recommend checking that one out. Now getting into a little bit more quality of life. In terms of weather, I actually enjoy Paraguay weather most of the year. Most people complain during the summertime that it gets too hot, it gets very humid, and it does get pretty hot. It gets over 40 degrees Celsius, which is over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. But I think it's tolerable. I think it's not as bad as other places that I've been to, specifically in South America. So I think the summers are manageable, especially if you're indoors and you have AC. You're gonna be putting the AC when it's most hot outside, right? I'm usually indoors working in the afternoons, and then early mornings or early to late evenings, it gets pretty manageable. The weather's not as bad. Now, the part that most people don't talk about is actually the winters. I think it gets colder than what people expect during the winters. When I was there in May this year, for example, it got to low like teens, or which is low 50s in May, which is not even the winter time yet. So between June, July, August, it gets into single digits in terms of Celsius, which I think is colder than what most people expect. But still, it's not like Boston winters. It's not like the Northeast up here, what I'm used to. So the weather is manageable, not ideal, but definitely manageable. The people of Paraguay have always been extremely welcoming. It's one of the more friendlier countries that I've been to. And I've never experienced any anti-gringo sentiment, which you might experience in places such as Medellin or Mexico City. So overall, I think Paraguay is a country that is still on the rise, and it's going to continue to be on the rise. Maybe not as quietly as it was when I first got here in 2024, but I think it's a great place to live and it's a great place to call home if you're looking for a base. And if you're interested in getting Paraguay residency, then check out the Paraguay residency checklist in the description, where I include the steps that I took. I also include the bank account that I opened up if you've never opened a foreign bank account before, or if you feel ready and compelled to start the process, then book a call with my residency specialist. Again, I'll link it in the description. Number 2 might surprise you, and that is Bolivia. So I just recently spent 6 weeks in Bolivia between late May until early July. And we're now in mid-July, so I am currently visiting Boston, as I mentioned. I just came back from Bolivia, Santa Cruz to be specific. And honestly, this place exceeded my expectations. If your priority is maximizing your dollar and purchasing power and being in a place where it has low cost of living for still a good quality of life, then I have to put Santa Cruz, Bolivia on the top of my list. It is some of the best value that I've experienced during my time here in South America for sure. And again, I'm talking Santa Cruz, Bolivia specifically. I didn't visit the other cities. I already know that cities such as La Paz or Cochabamba, some of them are too cold, some of them are too small. I look for a certain sweet spot, which I go into other videos in terms of a city that I'd like to live in. So in terms of Santa Cruz, it is the economic engine of Bolivia. I wouldn't necessarily consider living in other places. I'd love to visit more of the country, but again, we're talking to live. So the weather for me is tropical most of the year, which is my kind of weather. If I could be in t-shirts and jeans all year round, like spring-like to summer-like weather, then that's for me. And as a US passport holder, you receive 3 months visa free, which is a little less than most countries, but plenty of time to complete the residency process if that's your plan after being here for a couple weeks. Now here's the catch. To eventually qualify for permanent residency in Bolivia, you typically need to expect to live 9 months out of the year in Bolivia. There are certain exemptions that you may be able to have, which might lessen that, maybe 3 months. So we can call it 6 to 9 months living in the country for sure. And I've spoken with several immigration attorneys about this. So if you're seriously considering making Bolivia your base, this isn't gonna be like other countries where you simply show up, you get it done, and then you can leave and then come back maybe once or twice a year. No, this is a place where you have to live here and be serious about. But honestly, for me and my type of lifestyle, I don't mind that, because if I'm going to live in a main base, let's call it, I'm gonna be there for at least 6 to 9 months out of the year, right? So that's not unreasonable for me. And then the other 3 to 6 months, I might travel to a beach or go to like a bigger city such as a Buenos Aires or Lima, Peru, just so that I have the variety that I like from my lifestyle at this point in time. And like many countries in South America, Bolivia can depend on who you know at the end of the day, right? That's why I've had different attorneys tell me different things. Some people tell me I don't have to live here 6 to 9 months out of the year. Most do. So with that said, I always recommend following the legal process properly, but there are certain things you could probably get away with. And based off the attorneys that I spoke with, I could complete this residency process for also under $2,000 like I did in Paraguay. And overall, the process is pretty straightforward and it's even simpler than Asunción. For example, I don't need an apostilled background check or an apostilled birth certificate like I would in Paraguay. So here I even think it's even simpler. And this is actually the second country that I'm seriously considering getting residency in, with Paraguay being my first country. I'm also considering getting I am getting a second passport in another country in Central America that I won't get into in this video. But Bolivia is a place where I am considering getting residency and even renting a year-round apartment. And that's because I think Bolivia has a lot of upside over the next several years. It is a little more untapped and undiscovered, which is typically where the value is. So I still haven't made that decision just yet. Again, I've only spent 6 weeks in the country. But when I do return, spend a little more time there, I'll probably have a better perspective to make that type of a decision. Number 3 on the list is Mexico. So to me, Mexico is like moving abroad outside the United States with training wheels. Right now, I spent about 6 months traveling through Mexico. This was back in 2023. And Mexico was great. Honestly, I mean, the food was great. And I got a pretty good taste of the country. You know, I spent a few months in Mexico City, a few months in Guadalajara, Mexico, Puebla, Oaxaca, even some other places as well. And honestly, I was content with Mexico, right? Mexico has really good weather. It has great food. It has a culture that's not too different from the US, a lot of good infrastructure. Many people speak at least some sort of English, which is not true in most countries in South America. And like I said, the infrastructure is excellent in most major cities that you'll find, such as especially, Guadalajara or Mexico City or even Monterrey. But it isn't the cheapest country on this list. I think Mexico is one of the most expensive countries in the Latin world. We'll put Chile, Uruguay up there in terms of most expensive in South America. Even Argentina's creeping up a little bit. And then when you factor in other countries, I put Mexico in there. I put Costa Rica, maybe Panama slightly getting in there as well. So it's probably top 5 countries most expensive if cost of living and purchasing power is most important to you. And I think that's because most people choose Mexico just because it's so close to the US. The culture isn't that much different. It has really good infrastructure. Many people have already retired or moved to Mexico. So it's no longer the new kid on the block, right? Mexico has been a destination for expats and retirees for a long time. Another good thing about Mexico is that residency is pretty straightforward, right? You really only need to show qualifying monthly income or a certain amount in savings. The exact amounts that you need can depend on the consulate or the state that you reside in. Now, the nice part is that you can actually apply for residency outside of Mexico while still being in the States. For example, if I were still living in Boston, I could simply go through a Mexican consulate here. And then once I'm approved, I'd simply show up to Mexico and receive my residency through immigration. Now, personally, Mexico wouldn't be my long-term base. I've simply found other countries that fit my criteria, my lifestyle better in South America specifically than I could in Mexico. But honestly, if I had to live in Mexico, if you were forced me to live in one single country, Mexico would be a great option. I would probably live in Guadalajara, which is what the city that I enjoyed the most. It fits my criteria in terms of population size and weather and other factors that I go into other videos. And then I'd probably vacation somewhere along the beach, right? Mexico has amazing beaches. I'd probably go to Puerto Vallarta or Playa del Carmen. And then I'd probably go to Mexico City annually just for the optionality and the big city energy and the food. So if I were forced to, I'd have no problem building a great life in Mexico. Number 4 is a country that I don't talk about much on this channel, which is Panama. Now, Panama to me used to be the value play. It used to be the country that most people wanted to go to when they were first considering leaving the US, probably before 2020, which you know what happened then. But now, since so many people have gotten residency there, so many people have opened bank accounts there for reasons I'll mention in this video, Panama is no longer the value play, but it is still a good option if you're considering leaving the US and you have the budget for it. So as a US passport holder, you can stay visa-free for 6 months in Panama, similar to Paraguay, similar to Mexico. And Panama is noticeably more developed than most other countries you'll find in South America. Okay, you'll hear a lot of people call Panama City, it's like the Miami of Latin America. I think Medellin might be turning into the hotspot now. But when in terms of look and feel, Panama City is probably the closest thing in terms of infrastructure as well to Miami that you can get in the Latin world. Okay, and it's because of its skyline, its modern infrastructure, and really just its overall feel. And because of those things, it's also more expensive, right, than places such as Paraguay or Bolivia, and probably on par with maybe like a Mexico City. Now, one of Panama's biggest advantages is that it is a territorial tax country, also similar to Paraguay and Bolivia, actually. So if you live inside of these countries for more than 6 months, and your income comes from outside the country, such as if you're earning remote income in the US, then you are not liable to pay tax within Panama as long as you don't earn within the country. Okay, not many countries can say that. I just gave you 3 that do. And it also has a fantastic banking system. Okay, a lot of international investors go to Panama. They want to open a bank specifically with Tower Bank. And I also have a friend who recently went through the residency process in Panama. So for around $4,000, which is about twice as much as Bolivia, or Paraguay, but still under $5,000, which is very, very reasonable, especially in 2026. He received his temporary residency document within just a couple days. And then in about 6 months, what he'll do is return to Panama and collect his residency card. And then 2 years after that, he'll qualify for permanent residency, receive his cedula, and then only needs to come back once a year to maintain that. And that's honestly still a pretty good deal if you ask me. Another huge advantage is Panama's airport. Flights to and from the United States are extremely convenient, similar to Mexico. And if you're someone who likes to travel a lot, then being near an international airport is probably gonna be very important to you. So that gives Panama a huge plus. So there you have it. If I was starting over in 2026, these are the 4 countries that I would seriously consider if I were looking for visa-free access for an extended period of time, for a realistic, affordable, and quick path to getting long-term residency, and also still maintain a high quality of life that's also safe. And there are definitely other countries that I could have mentioned, such as Colombia or Peru, which are 2 countries that I really enjoyed during my time there. But as of today in 2026, I mean, actions speak louder than words. Where I have my residency and my cedula specifically is in Paraguay. So if Paraguay is of interest to you, then check out my Paraguay residency checklist where I go over step-by-step what you need to do, including which bank account to open up, or go ahead and apply to speak with my residency specialist for free. Or if you just want to keep researching different countries or different cities within South America and the Latin world, then check out the one I did on the best cities to live in South America. You can find it right here, and I'll see you there.